Tales of the Valiant, along with Dungeons and Dragons 2024, have brought about a lot of changes to 5th edition. One of the biggest of which is what was formerly known as race, now known as Lineage and Heritage in Tales of the Valiant, and Species in D&D. Today we're going to dive in and take a look at the Lineage and Heritage system of Tales of the Valiant and compare that over with the Species system of Dungeons and Dragons and see what they're all about. Also, what happened to my half-elves? Hello everybody, I'm Joe and this is the GM Toolbox. Welcome to another edition of Tales of the Valiant Tuesday with the GM Toolbox. Before we get started, please take a minute to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out to grow my channel and bring you more great content. Also take a look down in the description below. I have a link to all my social media platforms. Okay, so let's talk about race, species, lineage, heritage, what these different things are, how they work in game mechanically, what's changed. For the past 50 years, Dungeons & Dragons and similar TTRPGs have used the term race to describe if a character is a human or an elf or a dwarf or a halfling or something like that. Recently, Dungeons & Dragons updated that term to species, which I think kind of does make a little more sense for what they are. Tales of the Valiant used the term lineage and actually broke the race up into both a lineage and a heritage. The lineage is your genetic traits, what you're born with. So if you're an elf, you're going to be born with a certain, age, a certain speed, certain vision properties. In fact, in Tales of the Valiant, elves don't have dark vision; they have heightened sense, which only gives them vision in dim light, but not in no light, not in complete darkness. Which this is a big change for actually a lot of the lineages in Tales of the Valiant, and one of my favorite parts about it, because I always felt that dark vision was oversaturated in the game and it made lighting conditions almost non-existent, like a non-existent challenge in most D&D games. So that was kind of a cool change. But moving on, the other part of this system is the heritage system, which is your learned abilities. So your upbringing. If you were an elf brought up in a human city, you're going to have different learned abilities than if you were an elf brought up among elves. So in D&D, like we had elven weapon training, but if an elf wasn't brought up among elves, why would they have that? Just because they're born an elf doesn't mean they know how to use those weapons automatically. So I really like how Tales of the Valiant has broken this up between inherited abilities and learned abilities, and it lets you really mix and match and make some really cool, unique stuff. Species from D&D is basically hasn't changed a whole lot. They have made some little quality of life updates to many of them, but the biggest thing is they actually pulled out the ability scores that you get from your species and move those over into backgrounds. So now when you choose an elf, you don't get a +2 to dex. You get that from your background, which was an interesting choice. I think I more preferred what they did in Tasha's, where you can just apply those that +2 and +1 anywhere you wanted. One cool thing they did though was they gave you 3 abilities to choose from in each background, and you can either apply 2 to one and 1 to another, or 1 to all 3. So that was kind of neat. But I don't like that now people are going to end up choosing specific backgrounds to match specific classes because they want those ability score improvements. I think you rather than solving a problem, you've moved the problem to somewhere else. Not a huge fan of that. Now, Tales of the Valiant's ability scores, there's different ways you can get them, right? From rolling, from doing point buy, or from doing standard array. The only time you actually add is during the rolling. But you can add them anywhere you want. The standard array and the point buy have the improvements already built into the scores. They're baked in, so you don't have to add those at all. So this lets you create any character you want, basically. It's a little bit more versatile, lets you really customize the character the way you want. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into Tales of the Valiant's Lineage and Heritage system. This is a TOV Tuesday, and I want that to be the focus, but we will make some references to some D&D stuff here as well. So here we are looking at the Lineage and Heritage system. Now, I've gone over this briefly in some of my other videos, but I just want to kind of show you what some of our options are. So Lineage has certain elements. Like I said, these are your born innate abilities. your age, your size, your speed, and then some traits, right? Natural adaptation. Some lineages include a natural adaptation trait, which further defines species of your character's ancestry. In these instances, choose one of the options presented. So you might run into, let's say, a kobold, where you can either be a small kobold or a medium kobold, and that will give you a different trait. Generally speaking, most of these lineages have their age, their size, their speed, and then 3 traits. For this beastkin lineage, we have animal instinct, natural weapons, and then here's our natural adaptation where we'll choose one of those. For a dwarf, we have our age or size or speed, and then we have dark vision, dwarven resilience, and dwarven toughness. So there's 3 to choose from. For elves here, now you'll see what I was talking about earlier. We've got our age, we have our size and our speed. We have height and sense instead of dark vision. So we have advantage on perception checks that rely on sight and hearing, and you can see through lightly obscured areas normally and areas of dim light as if they were bright light. But you cannot see in total darkness. That makes sense, right? Dwarves, I get having dark vision. They live underground. If I was making a drow, which is not really addressed in here, but if I was making a drow, I would assume a drow would have dark vision. So this makes sense, right? And there are more lineages coming out. Tales of the Valiant actually just released this Lineage and Heritage book that has a whole bunch of new ones. They have been adding more and more. Basically, they're kind of creating these on their blog and then tweaking them, and then they're going to be releasing these PDFs with additional lineages as time goes on. And we should even see some new ones coming out in some future books. They have their Labyrinth World book Kickstarter that should be launching very, very soon. And I know there's going to be some new lineages in there as well. It is a really neat system. It's a versatile system. You will notice humans look very similar to the variant human of D&D 2014. We have our age, we have our size, we have our speed, and then we have ambition, which basically gives us one skill and a talent, which talents in Tales of the Valiant are basically feats from D&D. So you'll notice they don't have as much, but they're getting a skill and a talent, which is a talent's a pretty big thing. Kobolds here, again, like I said, age, speed, dark vision. Then they have, or I should say, age. The age, size, and speed. They get dark vision. They get this Tinker's Fascination, and here's their natural adaptation, either fierce or true scale. So you can kind of see how this mechanic of the lineages work. Now, you'll notice here that just like in D&D 2024, we do not have half-elves. We do not have half-orcs. They don't really address it, like how to create one. Now, D&D basically wants you to take, let's say you want to be a half-elf, choose elf or choose human, and you'll get all the traits from that species. And then you are just thematically in game. You can say, I'm a half elf. My dad was human and my mom was elf, but I take after my mom. I have elf traits, or vice versa. That's fine. The other option, of course, is to come back and grab your old player's handbook and just use the half elf right out of here. Just pull the ability scores out of it and get those from your background. Then just take everything else from here. So there is some backwards compatibility there as well. Tales of the Valiant, similar. They don't really they don't go much into it, but they do say the best route to go is maybe take let's say if you want to make a half elf, take the elf lineage, but take one of the human heritages. And we haven't dove into heritage yet, but heritage is those learned abilities, so you get a little bit from both. However, creating a like a half elf or a kind of mixed lineage in Tales of the Valiant is actually pretty easy, and I wanted to kind of show you how we would go about doing that. So let's just do a half elf for ease sake. So generally speaking, what we would do here is with age, we'd probably meet somewhere in the middle, or we just reference the SRD. Now you notice I have the half elf traits up here on the right, and that's because I just wanted to kind of reference those. And we know that half elves live, generally speaking, to what is it here? 180 years. So if we're making a half elf lineage, we just throw that in there. We can ignore alignment because alignment's alignment, right? But the size, 5 to 6 feet tall, speed's 30 feet. So now we kind of have a baseline for those first 3. How do we get the rest? Well, in D&D, they would have dark vision. So I would say that in TOV, we would give them the half-elves heightened sense. In D&D, they have Fey ancestry, so we would give them magic ancestry. Then they get skill versatility here. So they get 2 skills, right? So now we can come over to the human. And what we could do is we can either give them ambitious, or what I would say is give them half of ambitious. Give them 1 skill or maybe 2, and not the talent. And then we're done. We have a half elf. Let's say we wanted to do a kobold orc. Well, let's see here. Kobolds live to 80, orcs live to 60. So we'll say that our kobold orc lives to 70. We have size medium. Kobolds are generally small, but we can have either one here. So we'll kind of get into that in a second and how we'd handle size. So let's kind of skip over that. But both get 30 feet of movement. So that's pretty standard. The way I would do this is, again, we have 3: dark vision, tinkers, natural adaptation, heightened sense, orcish perseverance, and stalwart. What I would suggest in most cases is taking, similar to how we did the half elf, the first 2 from one and the third from the other. So we could do dark vision and tinker's fascination, and then we would come over here. We would do stalwart from here, or vice versa. We can do heightened sense and orcish perseverance, and then take natural adaptation from the kobold. So just mix and match the first 2 from one, the third from the other, and we have our mixed lineage here. So, and then when it comes to the size, if you're doing the kobold, well, that's going to probably be, you would choose here. And if we're doing the other way around, I would say if we're leaning more towards the orc, it would just be medium. Pretty simple, not hard to make these mixed lineages. A lot of people in the community are already posting a bunch of cool, lineages, adapting stuff from D&D. Tales of the Valiant also gives us this great Tales of the Valiant conversion guide that talks about how to convert anything from 5e over. And they even talk a little bit about how lineages work. So very simple to do. All right, so let's move on to Tales of the Valiant Heritage. Heritages are going to be our learned abilities, things that are part of our upbringing. So they're going to consist of a couple of things. They're only going to get 3 different features per se from a heritage. You're going to get a language. You're going to get generally some kind of proficiency in a skill or tool, not always, but generally, and then some kind of other ability. It might be some kind of magic ability or something like that. So let's just take a look here at one that, like Fireforge here. Let's take a look at Fireforge. This is more of a dwarven, generally speaking, and let me show you this real quick. Common heritage is by lineage. So dwarves, a common one would be Fireforge or stone. This is going to be kind of like your hill dwarf, mountain dwarfs, right? Elves are going to have cloud or grove, high elf or wood elf kind of deal, right? If you're trying to build more of the standard, that's what you can go with, but you don't have to. We can mix and match anything we want, which is really fun and makes for some unique builds. So if we look at the Fireforge, for instance, we get Firecraft. You gain proficiency with smithing tools. Double your proficiency bonus with any ability check made to use them. In addition, the mending cantrip. Cool. So we got a tool ability here, and we got a cantrip. We get heat resilience. Long life exposure has made you resilient to the effects of severe heat. You're resistant to fire damage. And then we get languages. You get common 1 additional language of your choice. Typically, Fireforge Heritage chooses Dwarvish. Doesn't have to, but typically. So there you go. That's how a heritage works. If we look at the Grove Heritage, which is kind of like the Wood Elf Heritage, we would get Canopy Walker. So you have a climbing speed equal to your walking speed. Nature's camouflage. You have advantage on dex stealth checks made while you are lightly obscured by foliage, heavy rain, falling snow, mist, and other natural phenomena, which is while in such conditions, you can always attempt to take the hide action even if circumstances would not normally allow you to do so. Kind of like the ranger ability. And then languages, common, and a language of your choice, typically Elvish. Pretty simple. So heritages are great. They have some really cool stuff. If you watched my video on my kobold mechanist, I tried to make Tony Stark Iron Man kind of character. I went with the salvager background, so I was able to use this repurpose, which lets me make make cool stuff. Proficiency in Tinker's tools and a couple languages. I really enjoy this mix and match system. Breaking these up is probably one of the best game design decisions I've seen for 5th edition. I don't know I'm sure there's other TTRPGs that do it this way, that break this up, but it is fantastic that they did it. It was one of my favorite changes to the system from D&D coming over to TOV. My players really like it, and we've made some pretty cool, unique stuff. So neat system. Now in D&D, both our old one, obviously we all know, and even in our 2024, it's just, again, you're going to be your species. So everything is still from species, pretty traditional, tried, tested, true. It works, but I definitely think that Tales of the Valiant really nailed it with this and made it a little bit more fun to create characters. Well, that wraps up our TOV Tuesday with GM Toolbox this week. Tell me what you guys think about the Lineage and Heritage system compared to the species of D&D 2024 and race of D&D 2014. Which way do you think works best? What do you like? And what would you change if you could change anything about any of these systems? Let me know down in the comments below. That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for coming on that journey with me. And I'll see you next time.